I'm Mr. Castor from Middle School, and you're watching a very special episode of West Virginia History in 2 minutes or less. On this episode, we're right here in Fayetteville in Fayette County, West Virginia, to talk about an amazing story of Jewish soldiers who celebrated Passover in the midst of the Civil War. Let's check it out. The story of this Passover began when Private Joel enlisted in Ohio. As he said, he was then sent to West Virginia to a portion of the wildest and most mountainous region of the state. The regiment marched hundreds of miles through the area and were involved in the famous Battle of Carnifex Ferry, September 10, 1861, but eventually ended up in Fayetteville. In early April 1862, Private Joseph A. Joel asked Colonel Rutherford B. Hayes if he and 20 others could celebrate a Passover Seder. Hayes granted their leave, but finding all the necessary items to celebrate Passover was difficult in the wilds of West Virginia. Luckily, one of the other soldiers, possibly G.W. Forbes, was able to get some matzah from Ohio. It arrived with 2 Haggadahs and some prayer books. They decided to build a hut for the services. Instead of wine, they were able to gather kegs of cider. They weren't sure which part of the lamb to use, so as Joel described it, they used Yankee ingenuity and cooked the whole thing to make sure they were covered. In place of the haroset, which represents the brick and mortar of Jewish people who built structures in Egypt, they used an actual brick to remind them of what the food represented. Most of the other items they were able to gather. Rather than using horseradish and bitter herbs, they were able to use wild ramps that have become popular in Appalachian food culture. On April 14th, when the sun set, they celebrated Passover with their improvised ingredients. As Joel conducted the ceremony, all was going fine until the ramps were eaten. It was so strong that their thirst got to them, and they forgot that Jewish law restricted them to just 4 cups. They drank up all the cider that night. Later that night, they finished their celebration of Passover, and the rest is history. Years later, Joel would recall the fond memory of Passover in the wilds of West Virginia. The story of this Jewish Seder celebration is a moment in time now preserved with the Civil War Trail's historical marker dedicated in 2023. At a time that deeply divided the nation, Private Joel and the other Jewish soldiers took time to focus on their faith. This is but one example of humanity in a time of great turmoil, and it's a lesson to us all. A special thanks to the Civil War Trails organization for inviting me out for this dedication. You can find more information about them and the Jewish American Military Society on Facebook or on their websites. Here's some additional information on Passover Seder menus.